Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to my Week 8 review. Oh boy, what a week it was. And plenty of teams dropped this week, and we will get into it all. So, a like and subscribe, up a comment always helps. Let's get straight into this thing. Starting off with LSU at Vanderbilt, I started off on an absolute heater with this pick. Um, I said 24-34. Vanderbilt would handle this. I mean, Vanderbilt was literally right there, ready to make this prediction happen, but they just ran out the time because that was how things lined up. I think it was like the last play of the game, third and goal at the LSU 3, just a little bit more time on the clock, and they would have been able to kick a field goal and make it perfect, but no. But it's okay. I'll still take it. Very good win for Vanderbilt. LSU, one of their touchdowns was ridiculous and quite frankly baloney, but it kept them close in this game, kept them competitive, but ultimately, LSU, this is one you can't really lose. Even though Vanderbilt is a good team, you've got much harder teams to play as the season goes on. After this one, you host number 3 A&M, rivalry game. It's interesting, but after that, at Alabama. And then you got two kind of easier games. Arkansas is a rivalry game, but still, they're not crazy good. But to finish off the year, you're at Oklahoma. You can't lose those. You just can't as LSU. You can't lose those. That would be horrible for them to lose all those. So they at least have to pick up one. And of all the games to lose, this was one that they kind of needed to win. And Vanderbilt made it very, very hard for them to do so. Um, it was actually a really competitive first half. LSU let Vanderbilt go down the field and kick a field goal going into halftime, which was kind of a momentum swing because then early in the third, the what are they? Commodiers? I don't even know what they are. Vanderbilt scores a touchdown to widen the gap. The crazy ridiculous fart ball touchdown that occurred put them closer, and they converted a 2-point conversion. Then Diego Pavia unleashed his balls and ran for 21 yards to make it a 10-point game again. LSU would kick a field goal, and that's the last points we would see in this game. Well, with Vanderbilt also right on the goal line at the end of the game, and LSU was literally forced to punt. They were forced to punt the ball in 3 plays. They moved 2 yards because they were at the LSU 22 on 4th and 8 with 3 minutes and 12 seconds left. It's a little interesting, but it's like in crucial moments in the end of the game, you have to have some offense. And their first drive, they took a sack. They ran the ball for 4 yards. Then they had an offensive holding, which put them 3rd and 26, and they ran it again and they punted it away. 3 and out. Now, granted, they were getting 3 and outs out of Vanderbilt, which was helpful, but they weren't doing anything in retaliation. They weren't doing anything in retaliation to the fact that Vanderbilt was doing good. They also had a missed field goal. It was a 52-yarder, so kind of long LSU had. And, I mean, ultimately, LSU probably could have won this game. But considering their lack of competence offensively failed them at the end of the game there, Vanderbilt ends up walking away with a 24-31 win over number 10 LSU. And now Vanderbilt is ranked in the top 10, which I think is kind of crazy. You know, it's a good win and all, but 7 spots, like over BYU, who's undefeated. Like, what? I don't understand what is up with the committee sometimes, but congrats on Vanderbilt for breaking the top 10. Whatever. Good win for Vanderbilt. Very bad loss for LSU. Georgia Tech at Duke. I actually saw some major upset potential. If I remember correctly, I actually had Duke winning this at first, but I switched it at the last second. Good call. Even though this game was really close, it was really defensive. And Georgia Tech ended up walking away with a handy victory. It was apparently enough of a win to launch them 5 spots up in the AP poll, but I don't know. Duke hasn't been very good all year. Georgia Tech got out offensed by Duke. And yeah, the reason I ended up switching to Georgia Tech was because Haynes King has been that guy in these close, scary game situations. He's been goated. And he was pretty goated this game too. The thing was, is Duke had more yards of offense by 70. They just had a fumble. That was the only turnover of the game and a fourth down failure, but I'd assume that came when the game was already over. But the scoop and score, there was a scoop and score at the Georgia Tech 1 yard line that gave Georgia Tech 7 instead of Duke, which was a big time blunder. And then they also went down the field to the Georgia Tech 12, where they went for 4th and 5 and they failed to convert. When you do stuff like that, mainly the fourth down failure, instead of taking your three and staying in a close battle against a highly ranked Georgia Tech team, you are going to be absolutely beating yourself down. Like a fumble to 95 yards to the house is just a miraculous thing that happened at Georgia Tech. You can't let it get you down. I understand you go for the 4th and 5 and you get it to take some momentum back, but I just think you take your three to keep yourself competitive. It turns into a defensive battle from that point on. Georgia Tech is literally doing nothing offensively. Duke goes down the field and scores a touchdown. Georgia Tech, 5 plays, 46 yards, like their longest drive of the game so far, and they can't do anything with it because the half runs out. Duke, first drive of the third quarter, they go down the field 50 yards and kick a field goal. Georgia Tech responds with an 8-play, 63-yard drive for a field goal. And this is where the Georgia Tech offense really turned on. It was just off in the first half, and it turned on in the second half. They after their field goal, they force a 5-play, 21-yard punt by Duke. And then they went 12 plays, 89 yards for a field goal, not even for a touchdown, for a field goal, 4th and goal at the Duke 5. See, Duke went for it. Georgia Tech kicks their field goal, which actually proves to be important because they force a 3-and-out defensively, and then they go 9 plays, 72 yards for a touchdown. Now the game is a 10-point game versus a 7-point game. And Duke, they a 46-yard field goal, miss it. You can't miss that. Would have kept the game close, but then Georgia Tech retaliates with a 4-play 71-yard drive off of a 47-yard Haynes King run, topped off by a personal foul, and it was on a 3rd and 14. And then right after that, Haynes King again, a 28-yard run for a touchdown. Take the life out of Duke. Duke goes down the field, scores a touchdown in a 2-point conversion, but it doesn't amount to anything. You fail to score points, you lose the game. Like that's just how it goes against an undefeated Georgia Tech team. The scoop and score was horrible, but sometimes that just shit like that will just happen in college football, and it hurts. But that's something you're just gonna have to be prepared to get over. The 4th and 5 failure, though, big mistake. Big mistake, because that could have proven crucial if you would have just taken your three. The missed field goal, that one sucks too, but it's almost like if you would have gone for the field goal earlier in the game, you wouldn't necessarily need to take the field goal. You could maybe put yourself in a position to go for it there rather than kick a long field goal for your kicker versus the short field goal, I don't know. I'm not a head coach, but I personally think when the game is 7-0, you just kick your three, especially with the way you lost points last time. I say you just kick your three and get out of there with points while you still can. But Georgia Tech, they take another victory. Apparently, this win was enough to launch them 5 spots up in the poll, which was kind of wacky to me. But yeah, they're number 7 now, so good for Georgia Tech. Baylor at TCU. Unfortunately, this game was a beautiful game that was just stomped all over by weather delays. You couldn't even watch the damn game because it was just constant weather delays. I said it would be a high-scoring shootout between these two teams. It really was, but it was kind of iffy on that because how the weather delays played out and everything. It made it kind of wacky and weird, but ultimately TCU kind of dominated this game. They were up pretty much the whole time. Baylor got off to the start, 14 plays, 92 yards, and they scored a touchdown off that drive, but then TCU responded with 2 touchdown drives. Baylor goes down the field and kicks a field goal, but right before halftime, TCU scores a touchdown, and then I'm pretty sure off the first drive, if I could pull up the play-by-play here, first drive out of the second half, TCU scores to make it 28-10. So you can kind of gander how this game went. Baylor responds with a touchdown and a 2-point conversion, and then a field goal later after a TCU 3-and-out to make it a 7-point game again, but then they can't stop TCU from the explosive plays. They let them get a 65-yard touchdown run to make it 21-35 before we entered a gigantor weather delay again. Baylor, 5 plays, 19 yards. They go for a 4th and 3 at their own 33, and they don't get it, which leads to a short field and a touchdown to TCU to make it 42-21. And then pretty much, the Baylor throws an interception, and TCU fumbles the ball, which leads to a touchdown for Baylor, and they get the 2-point conversion. Then Baylor gets a punt, and they get another drive. They actually manage to get the onside kick, which spells doom for TCU there, because that comeback would be immaculate, but then Sawyer Robertson throws an interception to the TCU defense. Baylor takes another loss. They are now 4-3, and TCU is 5-2. Now, Baylor honestly should have won this game, but when you turn the ball over 4 times and you fail 2 of your 4 fourth down conversions for a total of six turnovers, you're going to lose a football game. But TCU just capitalized at the right time. They kind of shut down when they were up 21 points, but it ultimately didn't matter because they won 42-36. But TCU gets a huge win over their rival or one of their rivals, and Baylor drops to 2-2 in the conference, and TCU is also 2-2 in the conference. So 2 teams right there with extremely explosive, quote-unquote, Heisman quarterbacks are now falling apart. Ohio State at Wisconsin. I said if there was one way for this coach to bring some life back into Wisconsin, this was the game. I said they would actually play it pretty competitive, and I thought Ohio State's kind of been slipping up. That was not the case. Ohio State went in here and absolutely dominated, and this is the second shutout in a row that Wisconsin has faced on their home field. So yeah, their coach is gone. There's just no question. You lose 37-0 in a rivalry game the week before, and then you lose 34-0 against Ohio State. Now you have to travel on the road to Oregon, who is 34.5-point favorite. Good luck. I don't really see another win on the schedule for Wisconsin for the rest of the year. But, they got absolutely destroyed. Ole Miss at Georgia. I'm so happy I picked this one right. And honestly, the reasoning behind it was Ole Miss, barely beat Washington State, and they've kind of been struggling. Their best win was against LSU. I see a little bit of overrated, and I thought Georgia was going to kind of dominate for most of this game. Final score would be closer than it was. It wasn't that case. Ole Miss was up the whole game. It's just Georgia is playing like that team right now, and their coaching is through the roof. And I mean, Ole Miss was doing fan-frickin-tabulous this whole game. They were up pretty much the whole time before they let it slip away. They shut down in the fourth quarter, but Ole Miss is here to stay, man. Lane Kiffin was coaching a great game up until the fourth quarter, where they ultimately failed to move the ball 4 times in a row on their own 35, where they had to go for a 4th down conversion. They just failed a bunch of passes. They failed 4 passes in a row, incompletions. And that was even Georgia being nice. I mean, they were down at the Ole Miss 24, and they settled for a field goal on a 10-play, 66-yard drive. And I mean, the Georgia defense just absolutely stonewalled the Ole Miss offense in the fourth quarter. 3 plays, 0 yards. 3 plays, 1 yard. 5 plays, 12 yards, failure on downs. That was the fourth quarter. Georgia absolutely stonewalled Ole Miss. And honestly, Ole Miss probably should have won this game had they not blown up like that. But when push comes to shove, Georgia had 510 yards of offense to Ole Miss's 351. No turnovers until the last failure at the end of the game, which you can't really even count as a turnover because it was a game-deciding play. And Georgia's winning by 8 points. It's just Georgia was the better offensive team. There's no question that Ole Miss has a spectacular offense, but their defense is super questionable, And same thing goes for Georgia, There hasn't really been much of a defensive stand until that fourth quarter there from Georgia. I mean, they're 44-41 against Tennessee. And now 43-35 against Ole Miss. It's just they're having a fun time with their offense right now. But honestly, Georgia Tech is shaping up to be a matchup, dude. It's shaping up to be a game. And yeah, good win for Georgia. They're up to number 5 since their shocking loss to Alabama at Georgia, which the AP poll was able to figure this one out. They were able to put Alabama over Georgia because they won the head-on-head matchup, but for some reason they weren't able to put Nebraska in front of Cincinnati, even though they won. Now, granted, Nebraska did end up losing in Cincinnati. They beat Oklahoma State, so I guess in that sense they were right, but still, they won the head-on-head matchup. Get it right. SMU at Clemson. I put this one in here because this one was super telling of how both of these teams' seasons were going to go from this point on. SMU lost in double overtime in a game they absolutely should have won against Baylor. They let Baylor climb their way back into that thing and somehow pull off the win. And then they lost on the road in a rivalry matchup against TCU. That was competitive pretty much the entire game until they let them take it away on 2 explosive plays in the fourth quarter. SMU is a pretty underrated team in my eyes. Yeah, and I mean, they only lost that Baylor game because they blew up defensively, letting them score 2 late touchdowns to force overtime somehow. They were up 38-24, and they let Baylor score 2 late touchdowns on very explosive plays. And then they threw a bad interception, which led to Baylor kicking a game-winning field goal in overtime. Kind of just spoon-fed them the win there. And I mean, since then, since those 2 losses, SMU has kind of just been walking all over teams in the ACC. They beat the crap out of Syracuse, killed Stanford, and they most recently, they just beat Clemson. I said Clemson would win this one in a close matchup, same score as the ACC championship last year. But SMU goes in and honestly kind of dominates over Clemson. They dominated. They got up 10-0 early. Clemson finally puts down a touchdown, but then SMU gets up 16-7 off of 2 field goals. Clemson makes it close off of another gigantor pass. And then SMU scores a touchdown and make it a 9-point game. They keep it, Clemson keeps it close with a field goal. But honestly, it's like that field goal when you're going down 4th and goal at the SMU 10 after such a long drive and well-sustained 17 plays, 65 yards. It just hurts that you get stopped and you don't get in there. And it speaks loudly because SMU goes down the field and scores a touchdown. And, SMU goes down the field and scores a touchdown, which makes it 29-17 because they tried the 2-point conversion to make it I think a 14-point game. Yeah, 14-point game. And then Clemson 3 and out. They punt the ball, and Kevin Jennings throws an interception. They throw an interception, and Clemson scores off of it, making it 24, and they scored on a 4th and 21, making it 24-29. But SMU, man, they don't stop. They just keep going. They get a nice 4th down conversion off of a pass interference, and they get a 4th down conversion off a nice pass interference, and they convert a 3rd and 10 at the Clemson 35 for 26 yards, and they punch in the touchdown. They fail the 2-point conversion, but it doesn't matter because it is 35-24 with barely any time left on the clock, and Clemson can't go down the field in time. And they can't go down the field in time to win. And I don't even know if Cade Klubnik was playing. Now that I'm looking at it, Cade Klubnik wasn't even playing. Yeah, it was somebody else. Christopher Vivinas. Or Vizina. Christopher Vizina. Let's see, did Cade Klubnik, was he hurt going into this game? It looks like he didn't play at all. Yeah, it was not Cade Klubnik, ladies and gentlemen. This was Christopher Vizina. And he honestly, for I would assume his first start, unless he's been playing these last couple games, he played really, really good. 29 for 42, 3 touchdowns. It's just the problem was Clemson couldn't run the ball. You know, Ultimately, 317 yards of their 352 yards were passing. They moved the ball 35 yards on the floor. When you're no rushing attack whatsoever, that's literally the difference. Clemson had more passing yards than SMU, but SMU had 100 more rushing yards. So ultimately, I mean, if you can't get a run game going, you're not going to win. And still, the game was that close for Clemson. So both these teams are still super underrated, super good. Cade Klubnik, I don't know if he got benched for this game or if he's hurt, but his draft stock just absolutely tanked after being one of the Heisman favorites. It's gone. It's all tanking out. And SMU, they're now actually in a position to win, or not win, but go to the ACC championship. Right now they're undefeated in the conference, tied with Virginia and Georgia Tech. SMU, they get a shot at Miami in 2 weeks. So you got to win that one if you want a shot. But then later you got a shot at Louisville, which Louisville already has a loss in the conference to Virginia. But Virginia honestly looks like a big problem right now. Even though they barely beat Washington State, it's clear to us now that Washington State is actually just super underrated. And their record is way worse than they actually are because they almost went into Ole Miss and won, and now they almost went into Virginia and won. So they're actually just a pretty damn good team. And Virginia's loss to North Carolina State is kind of puzzling because they've been so good since then. At North Carolina, that should be easy. At Cal, that should also be easy, even though Cal has gone 5-2 since their awful loss against San Diego State 34-0, which really confused people. And they lost bad to Duke, but they bounced back with a very lucky win over North Carolina, but still, they're probably not that good. I mean, they can win out. They've got a hard game against Duke late in the year because that'll be upset potential and probably a full crowd. That'll be their last tough one, but they might not lose a game in the conference. Georgia Tech, they also don't really have much of a loss. Maybe at North Carolina State, but I don't know. They also, so it's kind of looking interesting for SMU. Unfortunately, this is where record plays in. You kind of need either Georgia Tech or Virginia to lose because you lost to two Big 12 teams. So SMU, if you win over Miami, it'll be interesting. They might just get into the playoffs if they win out and they win against Miami. But, it'll be super interesting there. Texas Tech at ASU. Oh, yeah. Let me go ahead and start here. The amount of people that are bailing Texas Tech out for losing with their backup quarterback in. How come ASU doesn't get that same treatment? And now I don't give a damn what the score was. I don't care. Texas Tech is probably not going to beat Utah if Will Hammond doesn't come in for Texas Tech. That game was close all the way through, and Utah was slowly but surely pushing forward and forward and forward. I don't know when Will Hammond came in to the game. I don't know when. Yeah, it looks like he came in. Maybe he came in. Like in the third quarter, the second drive for Texas Tech in the third quarter, and they moved the ball more than they really have like all game in those two drives, other than their first drive of the game, with Baron Morton. That was it. There has been no offense from Texas Tech whatsoever, and he leads them down the field to a field goal, and then he leads them down to a touchdown, which absolutely destroyed Utah. He was the reason that they went in there and destroyed Utah, quote unquote, destroyed Utah. Will Hammond barely played for half of the game, and he finished with a much better stat line or relatively better stat line. No, way better. Never mind. Way better stat line than Baron Morton. 13 for 16, 169 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Baron Morton was 12 for 19, 142 yards, and 2 interceptions. It was a much different game with Will Hammond in because they could throw the ball. And the other thing is, he also ran for 61 yards. Baron Morton ran for 2. He ran for 2. Will Hammond was a dual threat on the field. He was absolutely torching Utah's defense. And the other thing is Texas Tech is all about they have a massive run game. Their pass game has been huge, but it's been a massive run game. And I mean, had Baron Morton stayed in that game, Utah was probably getting ready to put down some, or at least make it much closer. But since they couldn't account for Will Hammond, they lost and they started making more aggressive plays, which led to turnovers. Texas Tech's defense is still one of the best defenses in the country, all right? ASU's defense is also one of the best defenses in the country, but it is damn sure hard when your defense is playing semi good for the most part for ASU in the Utah at the start of the game. All right, hear me out. At the start of the game, they're playing semi good. They let them go 15 plays, 75 yards. That's usually how games start because ASU does the same. They go 18 plays, 54 yards, and a field goal. ASU forces a punt. Then the offense just goes 3-and-out, and Utah goes down the field and scores a touchdown off of a short field because our special teams is horrible. And then we go down the field offensively, and we mess up the snap on a chip shot field goal, which leads to a missed field goal. How is your team, who was already down in the dumps that their quarterback got hurt from a pickup basketball game, going to retaliate after they go down the field in a long-ass drive and they botch a field goal, again, special teams failing, and they've got to go back out there and try and stop Utah again? Well, they don't. They let them go. They let them go 6 plays, 75 yards, and score a touchdown. And then we have an opportunity before halftime to potentially move down the field. And all we do is 6 plays, 11 yards. I mean, that's all ASU was doing was chip short plays, just keep moving the ball forward somehow. We were 4 for 5 on fourth down efficiency. We were just moving the ball 3-4 yards every time we could. Enter the second half. We've got the ball. What do? 3-and-out instantly. You put your defense back at the helm, who has already been on the field the whole game, and they let them score another touchdown. ASU actually goes down the field and scores a touchdown, but by this point, it's 10 to 28. It's 10 to 28. And I mean, all Utah did was run the ball in this game. It's literally all they did, and it's all they can do. ASU retaliates with another punt, and it's a horrible punt, which leads to a 4-play, 42-yard drive for Utah. And then our only failed fourth down conversion comes at the end of the game, where we're 4th and goal at the Utah 3, and we can't complete a pass to Malik McClain because Jeff Sims is trash, and we lose 42 to 10. That's how it goes. When Utah rushes for 276 yards, your team is down in the dumps. I don't want to sound like I'm making excuses, but I am making excuses at the same time. This is not just speculation. This is how football is played. All right, when your starting quarterback is out and your offense just is so incapable. We saw the same thing last year with Cincinnati when Sam Levitt went down. We scored the same amount of points that we did against Utah, 10, and we let them walk all over us defensively, even though our defense had been so good all year. Sam Levitt doesn't play defense, yes, but he sure as hell means a lot to the mentality of the team, and that is clear now. That is very clear now. And ultimately, I mean, Utah is a damn good team too. They're good. All right, and ASU obviously got embarrassed. And what did they do? They worked in response. They worked in absolute response. I don't care if Baron Morton is playing. Okay? That's the other thing I want to get into. Baron Morton played like dog ass against Utah's defense. That was their only hard game of the year up until this one. They've played nobody all season long. Baron Morton has been torching defenses of 3 lost teams at minimum or at maximum. Well, I don't know how to say that. They all, any team like that they've played has 3 or more losses. Kansas is a 3-loss team after that. Well, I guess they beat Houston. All right, Houston is their only loss. Or Houston's only loss is to Texas Tech. But let's be real. Houston hasn't played anybody, and they've been scraping games out of their butthole, bro. Overtime win over Oregon State, and a game-winning field goal against U of A, and then a win over Oklahoma State and Colorado and Rice and South Austin. What even is that? Other than that, I mean, Texas Tech, Oregon State, they are literally I don't even know if they have a win. They're 1-7 right now, with their only win coming against Lafayette last week. That's their only win. Kent State, horrible. AR Pine Bluff, horrible. They beat Utah with Will Hammond dropping 3 touchdowns in that game. They beat Houston on the road. Houston's not that good. And they torched Kansas at home. Kansas is not that good. Like, seriously, that's all there is to it. They haven't played anybody. There are 2 games all season that I noted, or at the start of the year, it looked like 3, but 2 games that I noted at Utah, at ASU, and then at the beginning of the season at Kansas State, which could be shaping up better if they're finding out their crap. And later, maybe BYU, but I still won't buy on them. Really, the 2 games that I saw being big-time problems at Utah and at ASU. That was it. I mean, and honestly, also, another point is Texas Tech fans going to act like this redshirt freshman, Will Hammond, is not going to be their starting quarterback in the future. Are we just going to play pretend right now? Like, this kid is obviously super talented. He's playing on one of the highest NIL teams in the country, a 28 million roster or more. I don't know how much it is exactly. I just remember seeing 28 million somewhere. And he's a redshirt freshman getting ready to take the helm in the next year if Baron Morton isn't healthy, or if Baron Morton isn't a senior. What year is Baron Morton? I don't really think Baron Morton is actually that good of a quarterback. Yeah, he's a senior. He's going to be gone after this year. So this guy's your starting quarterback next year. So what? This is it? This is it for Texas Tech this year and nothing else? It's just over because Will Hammond is so quote-unquote bad? No! He's actually really damn good. It's just ASU is really damn good. Y'all, so what? ASU, oh, Sam Levitt doesn't play defense. Well, does Will Hammond play defense? Because ASU dropped 400 yards. I mean, come on. Come on. We dropped 400 yards. 319 of that came through the air. And ASU, we couldn't find the fucking end zone. It's not that Texas Tech's defense was shutting us down in the red zone. It's that this has been ASU all year. We get into the 10-yard line, and we can't score a touchdown. If we would be able to figure out our red zone offense, and we had like some miraculous play calling where red zone offense was just automatic, we would be torching teams all year. We'd be undefeated. We'd be undefeated if we could figure out our red zone offense, but instead, it's one of the worst in the country. And that's the other thing. Here, I'll just show my prediction for this game real quick. That's the other thing, is Texas Tech, they did not score because their offense was walking down the field. No, no, no. Our special teams was letting them get 50-yard kick returns every time we had to play special teams. That was how things were scored. Their only touchdown drive that was actually fully done by defense to offense was the most retarded 4th down conversion play I've ever seen to Jordan Tyson. They tried throwing the ball deep to him, and it was just overthrown by a million years. It probably was a holding call, but the ball wasn't near catchable. So it doesn't matter. Why would a ref throw that if the ball is so far out of the play of the field? ASU turns the ball over on a 4th and 1, which leads to a 5-play, 45-yard drive to Texas Tech, where honestly it didn't even look like the dude fully secured the ball, but the ruling on the field was upheld. ASU retaliates with a field goal, 10-play, 66-yard drive. Where did we kick the field goal? We had the ball at the Texas Tech 2, but then we go illegal snap, and we get pushed 5 yards back, and then incomplete pass to Jordan Tyson, and then pass complete for 2 yards to Raleek Brown, and now you're kicking or minus 2 yards to Raleek Brown, and now you're kicking a field goal at the 9-yard line because you just kick yourself in the teeth. You kick yourself in the teeth. That should have been a touchdown, but instead it's 3. And you're only going in the half up 2 points in a game you should be absolutely dominating in. Even their first field goal drive, they had the ball 1st and 10 at the Texas Tech 17. What do? False start. Raleek Brown, run no gain. Pass incomplete to Kamari Anderson. Pass complete to Raleek Brown on a screen pass for 5 yards, and we kick a field goal 4th and 10. The play calling and the mistakes in the red zone has been atrocious, but let's get into the special teams like I was getting ready to say. Our only real touchdown other than the last drive of the game came off of a beautiful defensive play came off of a beautiful defensive play by our defense, which put them on a short field. And honestly, thank God we got a penalty that gave us a new set of downs because we still scored on 3rd and goal after that. We literally don't have a red zone offense. It doesn't exist. We can't call the correct calls in the red zone. It just doesn't happen. It literally just doesn't happen for ASU, and it sucks because if it did, we'd be undefeated and ranked well within the top 4 right now. But instead, we're not. We then retaliate after that drive with a 16-play, 69-yard drive, which how far did we get the ball down? 2nd and goal at the Texas Tech 6-yard line. Run for a loss of 3. 3rd and goal at the Texas Tech 9. Run for a loss of 2. Now it's 4th and goal. We're settling for another field goal. How many times am I going to say and goal and we're not scoring points? Now, the 4th down, the real big thing that really set this game apart was the 4th down play call they went for at the 8-yard line. Absolutely no sense. I understand why they're going for it. I understand because it's 2 possession of a game. And there's limited time left in the game. You steal a lot of momentum if you get this, and you make the game a 1-possession game by field goal. Don't pitch the ball. Don't run a read option. It got absolutely blown up, and it was such a stupid play call. You had to move the ball 6 yards, and we're running a pitch option? No way, Jose. ASU gets the ball. We go 8 plays, 47 yards, where we have to, we choose to throw the ball on 3rd and 2 instead of running the ball again. And what do? We punt the ball. It gets blocked. It gets blocked because they bring the house. They get the ball in nice short field position where they go 11 plays, 48 yards. That's it. ASU's 8-play, 47-yard drive that ended them at the Texas Tech 44 was enough for a touchdown for Texas Tech because of a special teams collapse. We get the ball. We go 3 and out, -6 yards. And what do? We shank the crap out of the punt. We shank or I think they might have even gotten a hand on it again, but we shank it either way. It pops up, and he returns it for 36 yards to the ASU 12, which 1 play later, Texas Tech 12-yard pass for a touchdown. Thank God Sam Levitt is cool, calm, and collected in the clutch because he takes a 10-play, 75-yard drive down for a touchdown in the last couple seconds. Texas Tech, again, tries to get some lucky crap going on the special teams because we get a nice, good kick, which we down them, but no, a player lined up offsides off the special teams. So instead, we give them a 43-yard kick, and they return it for 9 to the 36. Would have been down at like the 20, but instead we give them 16 free yards. We let them slowly move the ball down and try to complete a Hail Mary, which they almost caught again, just like last year against BYU. And there was another time in the game where we gave them it was the one where they failed the 4th down conversion. They had a 56-yard kickoff return that put them in reasonable. And they 8 plays, 35 yards, and they couldn't score. All right? So the special teams was giving them every single goddamn opportunity to win this football game. And Texas Tech still couldn't get past the defense, and they still couldn't win the game, let alone even when they get up, the defense fails to stop ASU. I'm sorry. Is Will Hammond a part of the defense? As you guys would say for ASU losing to Utah, does Sam Levitt play defense? No, didn't think so. So why the fuck does Texas Tech get the excuse, but ASU doesn't? It's the same damn thing. You have the lead. You managed to pull it out of your ass off of ASU's special teams failures. You're the number 7 team in the country. The quarterback is not the only position on the team. You're up 22-19. How come your number 7, $28 million defense can't get a stop against little old ASU? It's almost like ASU's a pretty damn good football team, if you ask me. If Texas Tech gets the excuse of having a backup quarterback, then so does ASU. And watch the fucking football game and see how much ASU gets in their own way versus how much Utah did. Because Utah didn't get in their own way. They executed because they didn't really have a problem against Jeff Sims. But for some reason, ASU can't find the red zone, and ASU can't stop messing up on special teams. They can't. They literally just can't stop getting in their own way. And it's been like this all year. 3-point win against Baylor, 3-point win against CCU. We dominated. We were the better football team. Against Mississippi State, we dominated. We were the better football team, but we blew up defensively. Something is always getting in ASU's way, and it is just a matter of time before a switch flips and ASU starts to find the end zone consistently, and we start to make good punts, and we start to stop making defensive mistakes at horrible times. And you watch how quickly ASU turns into that football team, because they are that football team. They just need to figure it out, and they need to figure it out fast, because they won this one, but they honestly tried their hardest to lose this one. Texas Tech, in terms of a football team, they weren't a problem. They did not look like number 7. I don't care if Baron Morton was playing. I was actually more scared when I heard that Will Hammond was starting, because I saw Baron Morton play last year, and I've seen him play this year. Not good. He's not good. He's overrated as hell. The stats are against nobody. He's got a $28 million roster, and he still is not playing at that level. Will Hammond is a scarier quarterback, in my opinion. Fry me in the comments if you want. I don't care. Will Hammond will play much better for Texas Tech than Baron Morton will. This is a win that speaks even more numbers now that Will Hammond was the starter and we still won, in my opinion. If we rematch against Texas Tech in the Big 12 championship, which is still a stretch for ASU right now, and we play against Baron Morton and we lose, I'm wrong. That's that. But if we do, I have high faith if Baron Morton's playing that ASU will win that football game. But this is a huge win and a step in the right direction for ASU. Texas Tech drops 7 spots in the rankings. ASU moves up to 24. The bias is unbelievable. The bias is absolutely unbelievable, man. Because other teams can lose so bad, but they'll bounce back with a ranked win, and they'll go launching up into the spots, and we'll forget about their bad loss. But when it happens to ASU, they don't get treated the same. And it's the same thing that it was last year. Literally the same thing. Entirely the same thing. We could not move up the rankings because we were overrated. We hadn't played anybody. BYU's going to dog walk. Kansas State going to kick their ass. Nobody gave ASU faith against Kansas State. Nobody. And ASU went in there and dominated. And then we played against BYU, and yeah, the final score is bad, or it's close, but we dominated the entire game. And guess what? ASU was 5-2 last year. We didn't lose a game from that point. Guess what our record is right now? 5-2. Buckle your seatbelts, ladies and gentlemen, because if ASU stays with a healthy Sam Levitt for the rest of the year and a healthy Jordan Tyson, also they said he got a ligament strain or something like that. Well, he said he might have pulled it. You don't know, but it's not really like that serious. He was able to play on it. It was just slowing him down. If ASU stays healthy, I mean, also, guys, if you look at the injury reports before games, Texas Tech and Utah have like 6 players injured. The list for ASU is like literally off the chart. There's so many players that are hurt for ASU right now, and it's not quite killing us. That's the crazy part, is if those people come back, it just gets harder for other teams. That's all I have for Texas Tech ASU. Tennessee, Alabama. I didn't really watch this one because after the ASU game, I literally was like so much adrenaline in my body, I had to go like chill. This game, though, I mean, went about pretty much how I expected it. I didn't see Tennessee going in here and beating Alabama. I expected them to score some points and, keep it entertainable, but ultimately, Alabama ends up dog walking them in their home stadium. Alabama's playing like that football team right now. And that Florida State loss is just bewildering, man, because I think Florida State literally just lost to Stanford, that is a horrible loss because Stanford is not good. Stanford is a very bad football team, and Florida State just lost to them. Yeah, let me see here if they actually did. Yeah, Stanford's 0-4 in the conference. They were 3-0 ranked at number 8, and now they are 3-4. And they have a win over Alabama. Make it make sense, man. USC at Notre Dame. I picked USC to go on the road and pick this one up over Notre Dame with their playoff implications on the line. But Notre Dame stay calm and collected, and they don't let another one slip away from them. They dominate in this one. USC couldn't get it done. They couldn't pull up in clutch time. The defense stopped them. Notre Dame is still a pretty damn good football team, and expect to see them in the college football playoff now that they win this one. Missouri at Auburn. It's time for Hugh Freeze to go. It's time for him to go. This Auburn team, unfortunately, this has been the name of their game. This has been the name of their game since the last 2 years. I literally said this multiple times. Their win against Baylor, they got a miracle. They broke it for a touchdown on that 4th and 2, and Baylor was making as many mistakes as possible in that game. I mean, Baylor had like a 4th and goal at the 1-yard line that they couldn't score. That was the only thing that put Auburn in a ranked position, and then some non-conference poop games that they won. And as soon as they meet up with SEC play, they've lost every game. And they were winning this one. There was no question about it. They were winning this one. And they just let it get away from them again right at the end of the game. And it's just like, my gosh, dude. My gosh. But ultimately, Auburn's got to fire Hugh Freeze. You just can't keep up with this. This is just not good enough. They're always just underrated. But even then, they still don't beat teams in the SEC. It's rare that they win an SEC game. Utah BYU, our last game. I'm so happy that BYU won this one. Utah, I thought their defense was going to be good, but I mainly thought they were just going to run the ball super heavily on BYU. But both of these teams are just like mere replicas of each other. The only difference was BYU was just getting more explosive plays out of it than Utah was. And honestly, this game remained on the floor. The fact that Utah is unranked is an absolute crime right now, because Utah even had 470 yards of offense to BYU's 368. They turned the ball over twice, and they failed 4 of their 5 4th-down conversions. BYU failed 2 of their 3. And Utah had more penalties. I mean, they beat themselves down. BYU should not be winning this game, but instead they are, and that helps ASU out a lot. BYU picks up a very fraudulent win. They are up to number 11, and they are going to tank. They've got the schedule to tank. At Iowa State, at Texas Tech, host TCU, at Cincinnati. That could be 4 losses. Back to back to back to back to back. That could be 4 losses. But anyways, that is all for this review video. I hope you guys enjoyed. A like and subscribe and help, a comment always helps. That's all from me. Adios.